we go. All right. So everybody will get a little button on their screen to acknowledge that we get to record what's happening. Um, Again, you guys, thank you so much. The topic today for our board education is delinquencies and collections as it applies to our small associations. And it really is different, and I think even more critical. It's always very important to us to know how hard you guys get hit by delinquencies, and so we're happy you could be here. I'm going to introduce some people in just a second. But we also just, wanted to say as more people join us, this is a really hard topic. This is a hard topic for our board leaders. And it's for a lot of reasons. It causes a lot of stress in your community. It causes a lot of stress on you as a board. There's potential liability in it. And it really feels like one of the things I think that people, like when I talk to you, you say, this is the thing we feel like we have the least control over. Like it's hard to get control over getting our revenue to meet what we need and handling delinquencies and collections. And it's uncomfortable. So with that, we're going to address all those things. Today's agenda is a step by step to kind of walking through from the beginning, not assuming that you understand kind of the fundamentals of delinquencies and collections, and we're so starting there and moving on to the very sophisticated options that we have to help you wrangle those for your communities. So real quick, today's agenda. As I said, delinquencies hit harder in small HOAs. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the importance of late fees and policies. And we're going to talk about preventing problems, which is really the core of this message. Going to have a little sensitivity and empathy to community relations in this process. That's very important to be aware. Because in small communities, you know everybody, you see everybody. It's not like you're stretched out all over the place. And so it's important to be aware of the impact of delinquencies on your actual experience as a neighbor. And then we're going to hand it off to our guest tonight, our panelist, and our integrated partner, Excella. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some things that really wanted to make us get this information in front of you even more quickly, which is the changing legal landscape of delinquencies and collections. So before we jump into all that, I want to say the Micro HOA team is here. I'm Sean. You guys, I've met most of you before. My partner Steve is here. Our customer experience manager, Jessica, I'm sorry. Some people call her customer experience manager. We call her customer experience manager extraordinaire.
100%.
Thanks, Dawn. And then we also have the people that you talk to the most on our team, Vicky Cole, our accounting manager, our insurance coordinator, Alejandra, is here. And then from our support teams, Josue, Wenis, Angela, Anna, and Claudia are all joining us so they can see your faces and hopefully you can see them. But the most important people, and I think the folks that most of you guys are here to talk to and hear from on this webinar are our panelists from Excella. And so I want to introduce Patrick Hickson, who is really a big hoo-ha with Excella, you guys. I mean, we're like Micro HOA is a get for us to get him for you on this panel. But Patrick is here.
I'm glad you're recording this so I can share that comment with the rest of the staff.
All right. And then spectacularly, Miranda Gaines, who some of you have had, there she is. Miranda, if you talk, you'll pop up on the screen for people. And she's our direct Excella contact, and she's the one who's really facilitating and getting out the information that you need that we can provide to help you be aware of how Excella and Micro HOA can help you with handling this really, really tough situation. So thank you guys so much. But most of all, thank you, board volunteers, for being here, because we know you give a lot of time, and we appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to start off with a survey. This is going to pop up on your screen really quick. And my question in this survey as we begin is, what is your HOA's approach to delinquent payers? What do you do? And there are some options there. So you can choose one, you can choose more, but take a look at those options and click on the ones that click on your answers. I'll give you just a minute to do that.
Right, yeah. Is that what you do?
Okay, getting a lot of answers there. Yep.
I do,
Okay.
based on what they're offering us.
Yeah, you just click on the little button,
Right.
for any answer that you want. Okay.
That's true.
All right.
The back and forth.
All right, if everybody's done, everybody made their choices. I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. So here's the answers. So for the folks of us that are here tonight, your HOA's approach to delinquent payers is the most are the board of directors just talks directly to the delinquent owner. Now that may be a combination of that and other things. Secondly, you're adopting collection policies. That's a big focus tonight, is the importance of having a clear path for you as a board volunteer, having a policy in place when you run into those problems. About half of us are using an attorney or going to legal action. Some of us are already using Excella, our collections partner. And then the last two options, other, and then we don't know what to do. And so I appreciate your participation in that. I think that's pretty reflective across the board of our associations and how they're handling this. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that and just let you know that we are going to present some information that we've prepared that we feel like is important for you to know. But we also, this is about your questions and we want to answer what you want to know. So as we're going through the presentation and the information, if you have questions, drop them in the chat, type them into the chat. If you don't know where the chat is, it's that little icon that's on that presentation screen down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Kind of toward the middle. But then also we're going to have opportunities for open Q&A as we go through the material. So drop it in the chat. We'll answer those as we can go. The Micro HOA team is going to be monitoring that chat and tossing to when we get them. Okay. Let's begin. First of all, it's important to know that I feel that this topic is so important to us to bring to you because delinquencies are bad no matter what kind of a homeowners association you're in, but delinquencies hit small HOAs harder. It's a bigger issue for Micro HOA's clients than it is for bigger associations. If a 250 plus unit community has a couple of people falling behind in their assessments, it's a problem, but it's a problem they can really manage, past pretty easily, I think. It's probably not going to affect the community's ability to pay their bills. But in a small HOA, that's not the case at all. With fewer owners, every single payment matters. And one delinquency can affect your ability to make your insurance payment, to make utility payments, And so we have to really watch that for you. But there's a couple reasons. I mean, those are the obvious reasons, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring your attention to, as we talked before, just as examples of how delinquencies can hurt your associations quickly. The delinquency impact. This is one scenario that we wanted to put forward. In an 8-unit condominium, let's say that their annual budget, every member pays in, let's see, about say $300 a month, and their monthly income is about $2,600. Their annual income is about $32,000. Well, for some reason, 2 of 8 owners stop paying their assessments. That income drops like a rock. 25% less income, but the HOA still has no changes in its shared obligations. And so unless you have some savings, unless you have some, a cushion, that becomes the other owner's problems really quickly. So that's something that we are aware of, and we want to make sure that we're, helping to prevent for you. But then the other thing, and this is something that if you are in, and I know I can see on the screen of participants, I know that many of you are in legally organized as condominium associations. Delinquencies affect everyone, but they affect condominiums even faster. And that is because any neighbor's delinquent HOA assessments can derail a sale in the community. And that's something that not a lot of people are aware of, but the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, has delinquency thresholds for condominiums, and it's low. It's 15% of total owners. So say that you have 10 owners or 11 owners in your association, you don't even get to 2 delinquencies before a Fannie Mae review at a home sale could potentially eliminate that sale from being underwritten by conventional mortgage lending. So that causes complications. We actually see those. That's not a theory. We see that stuff happen. And so we do want you to know that, in addition to just the stress and the financial strain and the sense of unfairness that delinquencies cause, it can make it harder to sell in your community and potentially even lower values. All right, I'm going to say one more scary thing, and then we're going to go on to actual tools and strategies. And that is that if there's one thing that we're hearing, and Patrick and Miranda may be able to speak more to this, is that it's getting tougher. It's always been hard to deal with delinquencies and collections. It's getting harder. And there are reasons for that. And that is that in the last 5 years, 16 states, including a lot of the ones that you guys live in, have passed laws directly on an HOA's ability to foreclose in their community. And that's probably good, right? I mean, nobody wants to be taking someone's home away because they run into hard times. But 8 of those 16 have also passed, states, have also passed general HOA collections rules. And those rules are starting to shift more responsibility onto the association and onto the board and off of the homeowner. And so that's one thing we want to make you aware of, because it's very important in that, it makes it more important to stay on top of any delinquencies in your community. Chuck, I can see you're here, and thank you for being here. And Georgia is one of the ones that has really made a big new initiative on this. And legislatures are asking themselves, how do we protect homeowners from these mean HOAs? And so it's supposed to be about consumer protection, and it certainly is in some way. But what we're seeing, especially in small associations, is that the legislation and what the courts are doing is creating more pressure on the other homeowners that are living up to their responsibilities. It's saying like, oh, HOAs are being mean to this one delinquent homeowner, and so they're protecting them from having to pay. But unfortunately, that just leaves the other homeowners holding the ball. And as we already said, that happens so much more quickly in small associations. So my message to begin is, and the intent of this meeting is that it's more important than ever to be prepared for a potential delinquency, to be consistent about the way that your community deals with it, and to be fair. And so those are the three tenets that this information is based upon. So we'll go into that now. All right, so let's take a step back. Does anybody have any questions or any comments before we jump into some of the fundamentals of understanding where your policies come from? I've shut you down. Okay. All right. Well, feel free to drop things in the chat when you want to, and or raise your hand and we'll do that. All right. Some orientation.
Seeing,
Yeah.
I'm on this webinar. Where is the chat? Oh, there's a button in the bottom.
Yeah, button at the bottom of the screen. Yeah.
Got it.
Thanks, Chuck. Fundamentals. Understanding what your association's collections rights are to begin with. So what are my HOA's policies? Your late fee and collections rules and policies. They are outlined in your HOA governing documents. The fundamentals of your right to assess homeowners their dues is established in your governing documents. So the rules are there are rules in there. They are typically in your bylaws, not in the CC&Rs. They're going to be in your bylaws. And they could be in, if you're looking in there, they could be in a category in your bylaws called assessments. It's also sometimes found under assessments defaults. But there is language in your bylaws about what is fundamentally provided to you. And I'm going to emphasize fundamentally provided because it is just a base. Of addressing your collections rights. Okay. So the other place to look at what you can do to protect your associations is in your collections policy, if you have one. And we're going to talk more about collections policies in just a minute. Another place to check is your board powers and duties or board authority section. Some states have more information under board authority about your rights to collect. And then, of course, also hovering over all of that is your state law. Anything that is in your governing documents, if your state changes the laws, it supersedes it. I'm saying the state law comes first. It's at the top of the chain. And some state laws are changing. Washington, for instance, is changing. And I know. Those are important things to know. One question in the chat, we're a townhouse community. Do we fall under condos? That's a great question. It will be outlined in your declaration right at the top. How you are legally organized. And if you are a condominium, it will say condominium on it. So your documents will tell you that. Townhouses are a little bit different legally. But all of the stuff we're talking about in here will apply, whether you are a single family home, whether you're a townhouse, whether you're a condominium. Okay, so that's how to find your rules. And then once you find your rules, what we run into, I think probably the most frequently when we onboard new associations or when new communities are developed by builders, is that the biggest problem that the boards face in the late payers category is that your bylaws give you a right to enforce assessments, and they certainly give the board the duty. And those are two things, those are two words, the rights and the duties. They certainly give the board the duty to enforce, but most of the initial bylaws do not outline actually how it's going to happen. They give you some fundamental structure, they give you some fundamental rights, and they may suggest, this is very common, that they say something like, as I showed in the last slide, this is a section of I grabbed from a bylaws, but sorry, this is so small, you guys, but it basically says, it refers to, there's a certain percentage of interest you can charge annually, for a delinquent homeowner, but it doesn't outline when the dues are, when the assessments are due, how they have to pay, what means delinquent. It just gives you some broad and really vague rights. And so what that can lead to, and again, this is a problem for the board volunteers, is inconsistent enforcement, either as board members change or as the different delinquent person changes. That can happen where different owners are treated differently because there's not a very clear and published policy. And the result of this is just stress and conflict. The fundamental right to collect in your bylaws is really not, it's a right, it's not a tool, it's not a process or a plan. So that's one thing we're going to talk about. Is talking about collections policies and how critically important we think they are to making clear rules and easing the burden on you as board volunteers.
Yeah. Hey, Sean,
Yeah.
if you want me to voice an opinion
I
on some of
do.
this
I
stuff,
do.
this is a very important page for you guys to understand, because sometimes boards will think they're doing the right thing, but they may not be doing the right thing, or they may be doing something that is against statutory regulations. So this is one of the things, this is a big part of what we preach right here from our side, is having a consistent collection policy, consistent enforcement. One thing that it says down here at the bottom: slow and inconsistent collections can send the wrong signal. Not only can it send the wrong signal, it could be a liability to you as a board and, frankly, an individual board member. Because one thing that when we speak on different topics from our side of it, that we make sure that boards understand is, have your bylaws, have your collection policy, and enforce them. Do not stray from them. Frankly, it is the way that you protect yourself from your buddy down the hall or next door. It's almost like, I'm sorry, this is policy. It doesn't, I know we have beers every Friday, but it's the way it is. Not to mention, you do not want to get into that situation to where I send something to Jim next door because he's affecting me, but I don't send it to Sally down the street that has done the exact same thing. That is not consistent collections. You can run into real problems with that. So there's a lot of things in here that Sean's talking about that are really important. Not to mention even the reply on there that says, um, the board president contacts the delinquent homeowners. You need to be careful of that too, depending on what state you're in too, because it's one thing to send someone an invoice. It's another thing to demand payment. And when
Yeah.
you start doing that and you are not a licensed person to do that, you can get yourself in a little trouble. So I just wanted to stress how important this part really is and
Patrick, that's one of the
especially
things I
because
really worry about
you
is
don't get the help because you're a small community. And I'll be honest with you, I love micro HOA because it is a part of this industry that I've been in for 17 years that is not focused on, because you're not the big money accounts for the big management companies. You're not that. And like she said, 10% can be two people sometimes. So you just got to keep an eye on it. Go ahead. If you let me
no,
talk, I'll talk forever.
I appreciate your emphasis on that. And we're going to talk about how DIY is not a good idea for you as as an individual. You can DIY a lot of things. And at Micro, we are like always trying to find the practical solution to things for our boards. But this is a particular area that DIY is really not good. We're going to come to that, but thank you. What else? Did we, okay, so we're going to talk about that. Um, uh, we're going to talk about connection to third-party collections. And Chuck, we're going to answer these questions. And bear with me while we get to that. All right. All right. So as we were saying, kind of winging it and using your bylaws as a collections platform really doesn't do enough for you. Our first recommendation, strong recommendation to all of our associations when they join us and to you guys who are here with us is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Adopt a collections policy for even the smallest associations, because even like a 4-unit, Jim, if something goes terribly sideways, you don't want to be guessing at a plan. You want to have a very clear path where the board feels confident and backed up. So here's what's in a collection policy. Every good collection policy includes something your bylaws don't provide, which is very clear payment instructions. It needs to be in there, like, when is the bill due and what are my options to pay it? Because that way nobody can say like, oh, I didn't understand, or they never told me. Second, it needs to have your fee policies. If you have late fees for late payments, it needs to be clearly established in a collections policy. If there's interest on late payments, that also needs to be written down. The third element is it needs to be really clearly stated when an account is delinquent. An account is delinquent on the 31st day or on the 61st day or whatever your association's policies are. So then the next thing is there needs to be a very clear outlined to the homeowner how the policy advances, like what happens and when. If you don't do this, we'll take legal action at this time. And then always in a collection policy, you want to have a clear outline of compliant communication, when we're going to notify you, how it's going to happen, so that everybody understands what the track is going to be. And the association, if it ever came to something legal, which this is the main thing to go legal, is you'll have a very clear outline of what you inform the owner would happen. Micro HOA can help you. We have helped many of you develop fundamental collection policies. We can assist you to develop that policy. We can make sure that it works with your governing documents. and make sure that it complies with what your current state law is. So if you don't have one and you want to reach out for us to help you with that, that is definitely something that Josue, our accounts receivable guy, and Jessica and Vicky all would know that there's so much value in having that clear policy in place. So the next step is once you have a policy and you start to see something go south, the next most common step or kind of critical decision for boards in this area is, when can we take action and when should we take action on delinquencies in our community? So the answer on when can you is when your rules say so. When your policy says so, when your bylaws say so, that's when you do it. As Patrick points out, a lot of the problems that the industry is seeing right now are caused by associations trying to be kind, I think, trying to be flexible as they can be to neighbors. But if they're not moving quickly and clearly, it's creating a problem in being able to be effective for the other owners in the association. So with that, there's one other thing though, because I know this is a big concern for a lot of you, is, okay, we adopt a policy and we get help, but we don't want to lose control over what's happening in our community. We don't want to lose control. We don't want some kind of automated thing that on the 61st second, it sends, an account into legal collections. And that's one of the things that we have in place for you as well. When should we take action? When you decide to, is the answer. When you decide, you can have the policy in place. Every single one of those policies has a stipulation in it that the board has discretion to make, board has discretion about the policy. We see that sometimes when people need some I don't know, flexibility or kind of, they know there's a tough situation. The board does have discretion. That is one thing, and we're going to look at this in just a second, like what the experience of a delinquent homeowner is. But Josue was walking me through yesterday, and Miranda puts these together for us. Miranda from Excella puts these together for us. Is you'll get an evaluation of the collection. You'll get an audit when you have somebody who's gone into delinquency. I think it's at the 60th day, isn't it, Josue? Or right in that window that we can put together an audit.
That's correct. Yes, within the 60 days.
Okay. And so you get a report that says, like, here's what's going on with this account and here are your options. And then we ask for your authorization to move forward. That's really key in this. We ask for your permission. So we're not just going to do so click, click, click. You still have control over the process. And I think that's really important. Couple of questions. Oh, Patrick is answering it. Gwendolyn asks if one adopts a collection policy, does that invalidate all the late fees that have been communicated? And Patrick answers no, actually. You have it can be building on whatever you have had in place already.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'll just go on to even say one of the things that we do when Sean hands us over a file is we evaluate the actual ledger to make sure that all the late fees and interest have been added properly. And, because like you don't want a situation where, well, I charged them a late fee this month, but I didn't next month. And because down the road, if it does, God forbid, get to the point to where it has to go to court or something, you have to have all of that stuff properly done. So we're going to go by the letter of your community documents.
Okay.
So that's that. And that is what an attorney would do too, by the way.
Yeah.
I have a question. I've been waiting to announce it, but was hoping that something would lead me to an answer, but I haven't had it. So can I ask a question?
Um, are we gonna, yeah, I mean, that, absolutely. What do you need?
Well, we have 92 homes in our community, and we transferred our management to micro HOA in January 2025, and we had a previous legal uh, agency that managed our collections accounts.
Mhm.
And I've been trying for 2 years to get the transfer from the legal accounts to micro HOA with, to be honest, I I still don't know what that transfer has uh, been or gotten answers to my many inquiries about that. Uh, but yet, when I went to micro HOA, I was told that that was all part of the normal process.
And
So,
it definitely is. And this is a good question, Chuck. And I know that it's been, because
well, I haven't
what Chuck is
finished my
describing
question
is, you
yet.
guys, is that they had accounts with
I haven't finished my question yet, so
Oh, okay, I'm
you
sorry.
would allow me to do it and then answer. That's
Yeah.
fine. See, and micro HOA has been great for us. But anyway, the accounts with our former legal uh, agency had us with 18K arrears in a 92 home HOA. And now with you, we have another 10,000. Not that it's your fault, but I still don't have an answer on the transition of those accounts from our former legal agency to yours, nor do I have any real feeling of what's going on with the $10,000 in arrears under your third party collections agency. And
I
it's,
think this will be a
yeah,
really good opportunity for us to kind of walk through what the process is, which is actually coming right up, like what the actual process is
okay.
there's kind of two situations here that Chuck is describing. And one of them I was hoping would come up in Q&A. And so this is a good one is one, many of you have had are kind of new to micro HOA have had collections actions going on with attorneys. And so one of the things that we get asked, because we're going to talk about Excella and their value, to our small HOAs, but one of the things that they really do is they avoid those upfront costs. They avoid those kind of the expensive process. But once an attorney has it, a lot of associations go like, well, we already have it with an attorney. How can we move it over to this more proactive process? And so that's a really good question. Can one of Patrick or Miranda, can you
Yeah.
address that?
Yeah, I can go into that a little bit. So I don't know is he with us now or
So we just actually in May we
okay.
started to
Okay. So
transfer.
what typically happens with things is, you were with an attorney or someone else prior to moving to micro HOA. Just because you move to micro HOA doesn't mean you have to leave that attorney, but it sounds like you want to leave. So that's fine. I understand that happens. Sometimes in those cases, if we haven't started the process, for us, we will do it case by case, meaning that, like, if all the attorney has done for a file is maybe sent a letter or sent an intent to lien letter or something of that nature, and they haven't done anything further than that, we'll gladly take that over and we'll go after it. We'll even if they stick you with a bill, which I hate it when they do that, when you move it, even though they stick you with a bill, we'll go after that money too. So we'll go after, because the delinquent homeowner is responsible for everything that's involved in it. So that's part of how that happens. Now, like I said, yours sounds like they may have been further along since they're further along. So I don't know if those are gonna get transferred to us. For example, if somebody's moved up close, bumping up close to like a foreclosure situation, we may just say, just leave that with the attorney that's handling that particular home, or and let them work that. We'll take anything new going forward, because it just kind of confuses the process. One thing we don't want to happen to the association too in some of these cases is for you to get billed like for something that almost doubled up bill, because usually if you take it from an attorney and move it over, we always make sure that you understand and check with them to make sure that they're going to bill you and they're going to expect their money right away. So that's not deferred or on contingency anymore. They're going to be expecting their money. So that's one of the things that we do to make sure that you get the treatment that you need. I don't want you to come over. I don't want you to bring a file over to us if it's going to cost you a bunch of money because your previous attorney or someone is kind of sticking you with a large bill. Does that kind of answer the question?
Not really, because those accounts that were supposed to be transferred to micro HOA, totaling 18K, I don't get any information from micro HOA or our former, and I won't name
All of
it.
this I'm gonna I think this is
Yeah.
so we're gonna
I want to finish. I really do. And I've been doing this for 2 years. I've been with this. I volunteer for many years, and to include treasurer and president, vice president. I know this stuff, and I'm not getting the information I need to know, to include information about the third party that micro HOA uses, which I've been saying, okay, we'll make sure that any arrears that are taken by micro HOA since 2025 non-payment includes the 12% interest on their arrears. And
this
I
is
get
what
nothing on that.
this is an example, you guys, and Chuck, I'm gonna have to ask you if we can kind of set this aside and
That's fine, but I've been asking that for a while.
okay, but all of this information is in and this is one of the things we're going to talk about. All of this information about all the collections that are being transferred. This is kind of a unique case he's talking about because they do have a tremendous amount of delinquencies, and we're moving them over from a different collection party to our system. And there are some legal timeframes about that. We're still in the one from May when these started to come over from the attorney. So we're working through that. So, but these are sticky things, and I realize that this causes stress, and we want to make sure. I mean, our entire structure is set up so that your information is as transparent to you as possible. If you don't know where to get that, I'm going to make sure that we get that information to you tomorrow morning. And also, Excella's platform is set up so that all of this. I mean, you can literally see every contact they make through the platform. So I want to get to that, you guys, and I want to be respectful of your time, but let's get there. And Chuck, we're going to take that and deal with those situations for you outside of this group meeting.
But you just
so one of the things that we are going to look at next is when you are making the tough decision, when someone is paying late in your community, what is their experience? What's their experience before we get them into a collections process? So the first thing that happens is that, just like with all the other homeowners, every homeowner gets their assessment statement. If you're a monthly billed community, every homeowner gets their assessment statement on the first of the month. Then everybody, most people pay, everything's cooking along like it should. The first late notice, that late payer, that non-payer goes out on the 10th of the month. They will get micro HOA, sends them, goes through the rosters, sends everybody who hasn't paid a message on the 10th saying, this is your reminder. This is a typical process. A lot of our associations have a late fee on the 10th. And it will say, your late fee will post tomorrow if you don't make your payment. Jim's question was, who gets that late fee? You guys do. The association gets that late fee when it's in the process we're describing here. So the first late notice goes out. If they still don't pay, we send them a second reminder, a second notice on right around the 21st of the month. So they get their second reminder, your late fee is posted, please make payment as soon as possible. Then the third notice, we send out the third notice to that delinquent homeowner, and that's an intent to collect letter. That notice is sent out 22 days after that second notice. By that time, they will have received another monthly assessment. So on that 22 days after that, they will get the letter that I've included on this slide, which is, and this is what it looks like to the delinquent homeowner. They'll receive a message in their email and in their portal that says intent to collect past due HOA assessments. This is what the letter looks like. It tells them what the process is going to be if they don't bring their account current. It also tells them that that fees will occur if the board follow, your custom policy will be in here. But if the board has a policy about how we accelerate collections, that information will be in there. This note alone really moves some payments. It gets some things moving. Because they're threatened with basically it's going to cost you more money if you don't go ahead and start paying now. So that's a bell that we ring that gets things moving along.
Can I just talk briefly? This is very important. I got the email today, just a couple of hours ago. 1 hour, 209. And upcoming change. You guys have made a change regarding the online payment, and everything will be discontinued and canceled and terminated. July 15th. This will be terminated, and then I have to re-enroll through Vantaka Pay. So that means that due date and everything can be changed. I mean, I'm just wondering, if you're going to change.
So let me get you to drop your name and contact number in the chat. It sounds like this is a payment.
Yeah, that's a Vantica. That was the Vantica Pay message that only affects a small percentage of owners that scheduled payments through First Citizens Bank instead of Vantica Pay. So that's not really relevant to this, but I can definitely answer your questions. Drop your name in the chat and I will get back to you on that.
Yeah, that's not really a delinquency and collection. It's just a how to make a payment question. So
right, but
you'll get that answered. So back to the experience of the homeowner, what we're doing on your behalf to not just let those late payers sit, not let those non-payers sit. We are actively communicating with them, and that's the process that we are conducting on your behalf. Now, if there's still no response, 30 days after that last notice went to them, we have an automatic reminder set that we need to request an audit from Excella to take a look at how to move forward and request your authorization to go ahead and move that account into our collections partners' hands. So I think that is a good point, Patrick, to hand it over to you. Patrick's going to share screen. You guys, we really wanted to, and I know a lot of you were very eager to talk to the folks from Excella today. But we value our relationship with them so much, mainly because it controls costs. And so many of the decisions we make for you as small associations are, because we know you need to tightly control costs. And so the traditional collection method of the attorney first approach, there's usually a big upfront payment to get a collection going. It starts fast, scary letter from an attorney, but then moves super slow. And in fact, kind of slows down to almost nothing sometimes. They'll put a lien on a property, but the problem is for our small associations, it doesn't get funds flowing. And so that's why we partner with Excella. This is our little analogy here with our Micro, Mike, and Maya. This is the traditional collections process, the horse and buggy, and now we've got Excella, the speedy dialed-in sports car. So with that, Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can walk the boards through how you guys work and what Excella's process is.
That's great. I think you guys have to give me sharing capabilities.
I did.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Let me get that to where we can start from here. All right. Are you guys seeing my slideshow now? Does that look
Yeah.
good?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
let's first talk about what you guys are dealing with. And it sounds, Chuck, you probably have dealt with a lot of this. The traditional way of handling things where the management company or your association sends your courtesy letters, maybe a 30, 60, 90-day letter, something like that. That's great. That gets some things done. But then you've got the holdouts. Traditionally, at that point, you would hand it over to an attorney. There would be costs involved with that. The attorney, basically what they're going to do is send a collection letter, maybe send an intent to lien letter at some point down the road, and file a lien. That is all they have, all the way up to foreclosure. So one of the things, and I know a lot about this because I actually came from that side of the industry. So I worked with attorneys in a prior life specifically for community association collections. So we like to say we turned this whole process around the right way because there is a lot that could be done prior to even considering foreclosure. And like Sean said, and like you all know, nobody, you guys are small HOAs, so I'm sure you know everybody. Nobody wants to foreclose on anybody. It's their biggest asset typically. Nobody wants to do that. We are not in the foreclosure business. We're in the work it out business is basically the easiest way to put what we do. So when you talk about you guys as a board, look, we've got stuff like this. You can read this stuff, but lengthy processes. Obviously, we've already touched on that a little bit. There is a history of attorneys taking files. They send letters. They don't communicate with you. You don't have access to what they're doing on a daily basis. Or if you are getting a monthly status report, once they've filed a lien every month, it says something like, reviewed the collection file. And there may be $50, $100 added to the ledger every time that they do that, or every phone call, or every letter they send. So the cost of the legal side of things is ridiculous, and it does not need to be there. There are solutions prior to dropping that legal hammer. So with that being said, okay, what are we not getting? What do we need? What do we want to do? What I've already stressed is the fact that there is limited engagement from the attorneys. One of the things that I know for a fact is that, let's be honest, attorneys are only sending letters. That's it. That's all that's happening. You're getting something in the mail, or maybe you're getting something, certified. That's it. That's all you're getting. If you don't know what to do, that is going to end up on a coffee table or a dining room table, and it's just going to start getting stacked up. Collections are embarrassing. Nobody wants to answer it. Typically, attorney letters are pretty nasty sounding, so there's no sort of let's work it out scenario going on. Obviously, we've already touched on legal fees can be very costly. And you're really, the intent of the attorney is, you're punishing someone over recovery and working it out and getting the money flowing, whether it's a payment plan or something of that nature. So that's why you'll hear me say we've turned things around the right way to where we understand that this is a touchy situation. Community association collections is all we do. So we're not your hospital collections that banging away obnoxious. We're not taking 50% of whatever we collect. That's not how we operate. We have created at Excella a product that we call Easy Collect. It is a more respectful way to approach. The easiest way to think about it is we typically do everything that the attorneys do, but we've got added features to what we do that make it work. And I'm going to go into those a little bit further. But we are a national company. That's why we are good for Sean's company because she's in multi states. We do business in 43 states. So not only do we have to know the federal laws that we're required to know, which is FDCPA, which governs the collection practices that an attorney or a collection agency can do. We have to know the state statutes. So we even help your management company out with that because we have to be compliant federally. We have to be compliant at the state level. And we even consider ourselves compliant at the association level. So one of the first things that we do is we review your community documents to make sure that we know everything that's going on. All right. So let's get down to some brass tacks. What is it? We are community focused for sure. We are designed specifically for this. Full transparency. That's one thing that we've already touched on already too, that we don't have. And I'll show you a little bit more of this in a little later, moving through this. But the easiest way to think about it is if we know it, you know it. We're not going to prevent you from knowing anything that we're going to do. Everything in our portal is real time. Even the reports, if you don't use the reports you don't use the portal and you use reports, those reports are real time. So when Sean sends them to you, that's up to date information. If she schedules you to receive them without actually, let's say your board meeting is the second Thursday of the month, it can be scheduled so that you receive those at that morning. That way you've got the most up to date work. And then the ethical approach is very big. And I'll be honest with you guys, this is what brought me to Excella and made me realize this is different. We are going to change the face of community association collections because it is no longer dropping the hammer. I mean, sure, we can do that. And yes, we have a smile at the same time we have a gun in our hand, so to speak. But, ethical approach means a lot to us. So we are going to respect the homeowners. We have collectors that deal with specific files, but we actually refer to them as collector consultants because they are going to explain to your homeowners in layman's terms, not the way that an attorney letter or maybe even letters we send, not in that way. They're going to explain it to them in the easiest way that's possible, meaning they're going to talk to them and say, this is not going away. The association has hired us. We are not giving up. We are willing to go the distance for the association. This will not go away. Let's work this out. That way we'll work out payment plans. We'll do whatever we have to do to get the money flowing for you guys. Something I like to get out of the way right in the beginning, because everybody's like, oh, this is something new. It's going to be so expensive. It's going to break the bank. It's just going to add more fees to what we got to pay. Easiest way to think of Excella is we are a merit-based collection solution. If we don't collect and the file is with us, you're not paying. Basically, what that means is when we work through what we do, our fees are passed through the association to the delinquent homeowners. So you're not coming out of pocket for anything during the collection phase of what we do. I'm going to go ahead and explain our fees. You might have questions. We might talk about this offline at some point. That's what Miranda's here for also. But I'm going to break this down real simple for you. When Sean turns one of your files over to us, we charge a $400 underwriting and onboarding fee. At that point, boom, day one, we charge 400. That is passed through the association. The delinquent homeowner is responsible. So we are not going to be invoicing you, the association, at this time for that $400. Let's go on down the road. Let's say we've sent our collection letter, and then we've gone into our silent period, and then we've gone to all the other features that we do, phone calls, emails, everything else that we do going after this money. And let's say we're at about 75 days into the process. We've given them the opportunity to pay. Now it's time to protect the association. At the lien recording phase or the midpoint of the process, we are going to charge another $400 to the delinquent homeowner. We're going to pass it through the association to the delinquent homeowner to pay. Again, you're not going to get invoiced for that. It is that simple. That is all the fees that we're adding to your homeowner. So there's a benefit for also the homeowner in this. If you guys have ever dealt with some of these attorney's fees, you may have a situation to where somebody owed $2,000 when it was turned over to collection, and a year later they owed $5,000. That's ridiculous. That is pricing them out of being able to pay the debt. And in the long run, I'm not going to disparage the attorneys because it's all we had before a company like us. But literally what is happening, it's almost forcing foreclosure to get any money back. And then that cuts into your money because it's so expensive. So that's how that works. The last part of what I've got on the screen right now is our variable income. So these are the only way we make money. We charge $400 and $400 if it goes that far. By the way, over 50% of our delinquencies are handled prior to that second 400. So that's a plus because we don't get paid until we collect. The last part is the most interesting part to understand. Well, I'll tell it this way. Contractually, when your association signs an agreement with us, contractually, the only thing that our collectors are allowed to bargain with are late fees and interest. We will get you 100% of what I call the principal amount back. We are not going to cut into that. Rare occasion, let's be honest, rare occasion, sometimes somebody's in a bad way, we're respectful. We'll come back to you, the board, and say, hey, this guy, he doesn't even have a job, but he's willing to pay 75%. Do you want to cut this guy a deal? That kind of stuff. That's totally up to you. We will gladly go back to them and say, no, the associations let you get away with this for 2 years now. No, they want this paid. Let's get it paid. So the late fees and interest are the only thing that we are allowed to wheel and deal with. Does that make sense to everybody? If somebody owes $2,000, late fees and interests are $200 more, so there's a $2,200 bill. That extra $200 is all we're allowed to wheel and deal with. If there is any of that late fees and interest left over after the wheel and deal and they've paid, that stays with Excella. So that's where we make our money, but we only make our money on a success. So that's a big plus right there. I'll stop right there for some questions because there's usually money questions.
Hey, Patrick, there is a question in the chat, and it is, what about collection of fees assigned to an owner for non-compliance of responsibilities clearly identified in the bylaws, such as keeping areas free of clutter, giving proof of insurance, etc.? Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Those are like violations and things like that. We will go after those. And I will say it just simply, it depends on what state you are in. Miranda knows this because she works in multiple states too, because some states you can look, we're going to go after those violations no matter what. The people on the other side have no idea what they can and can't do. The only thing in certain states we can't do is when you file a lien, some states you are not allowed to include those violation fees. Does that make sense? So we're still going to go after it, but we may only be able to lien the assessments.
And I think if I may, Patrick, this is such a good question because this is such a complicated, not only topic, and it's different for every association, depending upon their bylaws. But Gwendolyn, one thing, and everyone, when it comes right down to it, the association budgets every year for homeowner assessments. And those homeowner assessments are meant to pay the expenses of the association. The late fees or rule enforcement fees or violation fees are not meant to be the funding of the association. So those are less solid and tend to be a really good way to leverage a homeowner who's delinquent into paying. But what you really want, and what Excella and Micro HOA want to protect, is getting you that core assessment fund, get those funds flowing to you. And that's what, when Patrick says the principle, that's what he's talking about, is that core assessment is what you need. And and that's what we really want to protect. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There was another question in there, by the way. It was talking about I think it was talking about late fees and how they're calculated. We are going to continue to add to the ledger that we're running once it's turned over to us. We're going to be following the bylaws. We're going to be adding late fees and interest along the way, just as you would normally. So we are going to make sure that everything is correct in there. So like I said, you're going to get 100% of your principal back when you work with us. We're going to work towards that. Now, let's be honest. Occasionally, there are those situations to where you've got that person that's holding out that they're not going to pay and they need to go further. And maybe we're 150 days out and they're not paying attention. You know, maybe they're cussing us out. You never know what's going on. I mean, these are some crazy calls that we get on sometimes, and you know. We'll turn a bad call into a good situation. We don't mind people yelling at us because that just means the conversation has started. But sometimes things do proceed and they do need to go to a potential foreclosure situation or something like that. I'm just letting you guys know we do not do any of that without your permission. The only, as far legally as we can go in our process, is filing the lien. We can't take the next step without your permission. So that's what happens at that point. They are passed through, and we are fully compliant, as I've told you already, state, federally, and even by your community bylaws. One of the good things about what we've already discussed is the access that you guys have. We do have a board portal, a view-only board portal that's available 24/7. It's full transparency. You can run reports from there. You can see the dashboards. Everything is available for you through the board portal to do it. The greatest way to think about the board portal and what we do. Part of our process, and I'll touch on it in a second. Part of our process, yes, we're sending out letters. Yes, we're filing legal documents like liens. You've got access to all of that. We're making phone calls. Our collector consultants are making phone calls. Those phone call notes are all in there, whether they reach somebody or not. We actually, we've always had this available, which you don't have with anybody else. You have access, Sean has access through the system to any of the collection phone calls that she needs. If she wants to go listen to a collection phone call, she can. If a homeowner calls in and says, your collection company was rude to us, she can go listen to that call. She can even read an AI summary of that call, and she can see right off the bat if we were rude. I don't know if you guys know anything about this kind of stuff, but 99.9% of the time it was the other way around. They were rude to us, so it's that's why we're transparent. We're leaving it wide open for you guys to be able to do that.
Say, Patrick,
This thing you're about to show is I think this is an incredible value, and I really want to highlight it to the boards that are here.
Yeah. So it has to do with the reports. Our reports are everything that we do. It is not just a status report, uncollected. everything that we do is memorialized in our reporting. Our reporting has everything from the phone calls, the emails, the text messages, the communication with the homeowners, the summary of the collection itself. You can access the full communication history here. The cool part about it also is that you can subscribe to reports. You can have those reports delivered automatically whenever you want those reports. So that's a big, big plus about the report. So not only do you have, portal access, you have report access too.
Say,
Did we have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Patrick. And I've gotten so much more information and understanding of what's going on with the process for collections, and I appreciate it. But I have more of an observation. In our community, 92 homes, we have an average age of, and this was my research years ago, was 65 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 75, been here since 1998. But
Yep.
what I see is homeowners are experiencing a huge increase in their home values, and therefore they're taking HOA dues and saying, well, I'm not going to pay them. When I sell my home or die, I'll take care of it then. And so we're getting a huge increase in non-homeowner dues and fines payments. Is that something that you're aware of, or?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know it, Chuck, but we were formed out of Miami, and we cut our teeth in Florida. So you know that we've been dealing with the 65 plus crowd for years. And that is something that, we do have a lot of probate situations to where we have to go in and deal with probate if an owner or a partial owner's passed. Sometimes that can actually be easier with our process, and we can get the money faster. But when you talk about the idea of someone saying, I'm just not going to pay, I'm old, I'm just going to pay when I die. Well, for one, that's disrespectful to the rest of the community, because the rest of you are having to pay their way. Our solution to that, just a little behind the curtain, is our collectors are going to let them know your association has the right to foreclose on your property. You owe $5,000, but you're sitting on $150,000 of equity. If they so choose to go the distance and they foreclose on you, they're not only going to get that $5,000, you're going to lose that $150,000. So what our collectors sometimes, if they're in a bad way financially, we've during COVID and all of that, we told people about special government projects that say, hey, this can help you out. Anything that can help you pay your mortgage can also help you pay everything else. So we will talk them through it a lot of times in that situation, because when we get to the point to where we have filed a lien, they're still refusing to pay, and we come back to you guys and we ask, hey, can we at least send the intent to foreclose letter? Because when they see that, they sometimes go, oh crap, it's the nuclear bomb, so to speak. They're like, I got to take care of this. But way before that, we're going to suggest to them, frankly, just straight out of the bat, you're sitting on all of this equity. Get yourself a HELOC loan and get this paid, and just do it. That way you're in good standing with your community. Frankly, you have also created an access to the money that you may need later on. So I mean, that's kind of where we use kind of a kind, soft way to deal with people. But ultimately, the message is, if the association so chooses, they have the right to foreclose on you, and you will lose all of that equity that you think is going to pay for everything in the end. So,
and unfortunately, that's the position that homeowner puts you guys in as board volunteers. And even though that's heartbreaking and difficult, that kind of communication is necessary in that case. Patrick, I'm going to ask you, we do have 15 more minutes left. And I just want to make sure that everybody gets through what you guys want to share and are clear on, I think some of the things that Chuck is keying on, like the clear transparency to your process.
Yeah, yeah. And some of the things that you guys got to realize the way that we're different than the traditional method is everything we're doing. Let's be honest. Because I've already told you what an attorney's going to do. They're going to send a letter. They're going to file an intent to lien. They're going to send a lien. They're not. They have no more. They're a one-trick pony, so to speak. They have no other tricks except to foreclose later on down the line. We're going to use everything we can. We have integrations with the software companies, but we have other integrations too. So we can get appraisal information. We can run skip traces on people if we don't know who the owners are, if we think there might be an additional owner. Like I said about probate, we check bankruptcies. One of the cool things, the two green ones at the bottom are we check the mortgage equity. We actually have an integration to where we can approximate the equity that is in a property. And if there is a mortgage on the property, we also will find out who that mortgage holder is. This is a cool thing that a lot of people don't know, but when you signed to be in your community and you filled out your loan documents, you signed what was called a PUD rider. The PUD rider basically says, I'm responsible for this mortgage payment, but I'm also responsible for everything that is involved in this collection process. So we have actually created a mortgage demand letter. We will actually contact the mortgage company through letter. They will in turn, now you've got everybody coming at the homeowner. You got the community, the management company, this collection agency. Now they're getting a letter from Bank of America. We're thinking outside of the box on everything. Occasionally, this is an interesting thing. About 5% of the time nationally, the mortgage company will pay the delinquency on behalf of the homeowner to protect their interest. So it's really kind of something that we do that nobody else really does.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. Now, this is kind of, I've talked about it, but this is kind of like what our process of what we do. We do the onboarding. Then we have what's called a silent period where we have to go silent. That's federal law, FDCPA law, that we have to go silent. Once the 30 days is over, the gloves come off. We do get a lot of payments, and if they contact us, we can talk to them, but we can't contact them again for 30 days. That's just part of it. After that 30 days is over, the gloves come off, and that's when we start engaging them with letters, emails, even text messages, things like that, to where we can take it further.
This is just another critical.
Now, this part is something that is really amazing for the delinquent homeowner. We give them a portal too. And I know some of you say you have some elderly people. Just so you know, anybody can pay the old-fashioned way. They can call us up, they can send a check. We deal with that all the time. But we have a portal that they can access. They can even access what we call our payment plan builder page, to where they can see what would my monthly payment be if I went out 6 months? What would my monthly payment be if I went out 12 months? That is actually predetermined by you guys, what you're comfortable with. Most of the time, it's usually like 12 or 18 months, depending on how long. But you basically, in an onboarding, tell us, we're okay with you setting up payment plans up to this amount of months, and we'll enact that. What that does is we're the only company out there that they could literally come to this page and say, I want a 12-month payment plan. I see how much it is. Couple more clicks, they can initiate a payment plan without even talking to anybody, because we all know collections is an embarrassing thing to deal with. So it's very well used. Another cool thing about it too, this is all about communication. If someone comes to our payment plan page, puts a bunch of information in and leaves, this is cool. This is the big brother aspect, as you guys probably know. It's automatically going to send the collector for that file a message saying, hey, Patrick Hickson was on the page. He put this in. Guess what's going to happen the next day? I'm going to get a phone call that says, hey, it's going to be passive aggressive. I see you were on the page. Did you have some difficulty? Can I help you set up your payment plan? Sometimes we get I was trying to do it, couldn't figure it out. Sometimes we get cussed at. But no matter what, it is opening the line of communication and getting things done. So we've got all of these multi-channeled ways that we're contacting people. along with the integration that Sean has to be able to report to you guys and give you guys access. That's just about it for us. The last thing I want to explain, because it is to do with some of the stuff that Miranda will be sending you. It is two different things. It's basically talks about the difference between two different parts of our company. We have Excella, which you guys know us as right now. Excella is the software and the basically software of record and the parent company, so to speak. When homeowners get letters from us, we wholly own a collection agency called Schwartz Vase. It has the same logo and everything. It's just got a different name. Some people joke that they called it that because that's almost like a scary attorney name, Schwartz Vase, but that is who the letters come from us. That is who you guys would sign an agreement with, is Schwartz Vase. It is not a third party to us. We wholly own that. Schwartz Vase is our collection company that is licensed in every state. We just have the software and the collection agency itself separated. For the most part, Sean, that's it. I mean, what I'll do is I will provide this information to you guys. I've got, you've got Miranda's information down here. She'll be in contact with you guys and everything like that. But that's really the gist of what we're doing.
Thank you, Patrick. And that brings up a lot of things that we get questions about a ton. So thank you for addressing all of that. There's one thing I want to just emphasize, because there's so much like power and activity that Excella brings to this for you guys. Just to be clear, they are contacting just on a regular, consistent communication drumbeat with anyone.
As much as legally allowed.
Yeah,
That is correct.
if you can have a look, we're going to have this in our follow-up materials, like a sample of a communications log, which you guys can see through our portal, through their portal. But it's amazing to me when I see like the level. You forget sometimes because we're not actually like in on the calls or in on the email, but the volume of dedicated support that they provide, we feel, the people at Micro HOA feel that it's really quite amazing. Josue on our team is the one who's working in partnership with Miranda with their contact at Excella. You guys, if you need support on that, please let us know. I appreciate you guys giving us the time tonight. I'm going to give you a couple other things, and then we'll have a brief little Q&A for anybody who hasn't gotten a chance to ask their questions. More coming up from Micro HOA. We are constantly doing training and education for you. This was one we've been looking forward to a lot, and I appreciate you being here. We have our regular monthly board portal training Monday, July 20th, for those of you who are new to us, or for those of you who just need to maybe come in and ask the team about how to get to information you need in the portal, because all of this stuff is there. We just want to make sure that you know how to find it easily. So that's coming up next Monday. And then August, we take a break from training, do a little summer vacationing and catch up. And then September, we are back with our Reserve Study Essentials webinar. We're going to do that on a Saturday. We've had so many requests for that to understand reserve planning. So we're going to do that on Saturday, the 12th of September. And then we get into budget planning. And so I know that we'll see all of you when we get to budget season. We'll get those questions in the chat just really quickly. Party favors for you today for being at the webinar. In your Micro HOA portal, there are some resources on collection policies and on building those. And then our online resources, you can go to the Micro HOA website. We have blog posts on there about dealing with small HOA collections. Go to Excella. The link for Excella is right there. If someone on the Micro HOA team can also drop that in the chat so that anybody can download that. This is all going to be posted to your portals to our YouTube channel, and so that you can access it. Another really good tool, another good piece of information is the Community Associations Institute, which is the National Trade Association for Homeowners Associations. They do so much good training and information. They have a guide to association collections they published back in, I think it was the winter. And there's a link to it there. It was in their Common Ground magazine. Really terrific information, and some of the stuff we've talked about this afternoon. And then when the video gets processed, it'll be on our YouTube channel as well. We'll have it broken down into little chapters, so that you can more easily access information or share with your other board members who didn't bother to show up like you did. You can get them the information that they need that way. So before we go to Q&A, huge thank you to Patrick and Miranda for being here. And so now let's do a little answer these last questions if no one's answered them in the chat. What do we have there, Jessica?
I was just answering, David had asked how the HOA gets connected with Excella. And the board, my response was that the board is notified via email when there is a unit at that point in the collections on our side that we request board authorization to send them to collections. And at that point, we onboard with Excella for the association and get that process started. David asked about a collection policy and if we, have samples. And I said we can certainly help any association adopt a collection policy and resolution. So email support@microhoa.com if you have any questions about that.
And David, I'll make sure, I now have your email and I'll make sure that gets out to you as well.
I emailed Erin about Vantica Pay. I think everything else was addressed from the chat.
I think there was one question I want to roll back up to. It was about, and this is for the our Excella guests. If the account goes over to you, it's delinquent, we're taking action on it, you guys are jumping on it. What happens to the dues that accrue after it goes to you? Who gets those dues?
Oh, you guys get the dues for sure. Yeah. We're adding them to that though. So like I'll give you an example so it'll make it very clear. If we set somebody up on a 12-month payment plan, and obviously during that 12 months, they're going to have probably multiple assessments that are due. We're building that into the payment plan so that when they have fully paid the payment plan, they're as close to a zero balance as we can get them. So yeah, we're not keeping any of those assessment. They're still accruing assessments as they go once they've been in collections, and those get returned to you guys too.
Sean, Dave here.
Yes.
Just a quick question to follow up with Pat, or I guess the response before. So the contract with Excella, is that initiated on a per homeowner basis? Or
No, we would do
we just
that
have a blanket contract?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Miranda
Okay.
can provide you with that. Yeah. We don't want to go through that. It just spells out, here's what we're going to do. Here's the fees associated. You're giving us the ability to take it through the lien process if we need to. And it's just defining those terms once you're on. And so it's not an all or nothing contract either. So, I mean, you may send us 2 files now, and if you decide you don't like us, which it's not going to happen, it doesn't happen. People like the results. You just let us know. But like I said, we truly don't. Very rarely do we have an unsatisfied customer, because this is one of those things that is discussed at every single board meeting.
Everyone, right?
But it doesn't seem like it's gotten enough attention outside of the industry. That's why we created Excella in the first place, is because there had to be a better solution. We all went through that 2008, 2009 debacle that lasted for 5 years, and the attorneys had files sitting out there,
Yeah.
for 6, 7 years. Somebody back then owed 5,000 and now they owe 25,000. It's like you're not getting results. The best thing I can say is jump on it right away.
Okay.
Right away. Yep, that's the
And
mission.
then last question.
Guys, I'm gonna
are we done?
actually
Done?
thank
Okay.
everybody for making the time. We're at our time. If you have another question or two, David, I'm happy to stay on. I'm going to go back to one thing to close this out. What Patrick says, Excella really is on a mission of this, like, kind of, like to work with people and to control costs. And it kind of aligns with Micro HOA's mission, like to really deliver something that's sorely needed at a cost that makes more sense and doesn't leave people in a worse spot than they started in. And so I appreciate that. I hope I hope you don't have the problems that get you to Excella, by the way. But if you do, I know that we see disbursements coming through our office to our associations all the time because of their work. I didn't want to close without saying that. We get checks to our associations from Excella consistently. So the funds do flow. And I appreciate that they take the time to be on here with us. They've taken their evenings, and so you guys, if you need to check out, that's totally cool. And I'll hang out
Thank
for
you
another
for
5
having
minutes or
us.
so for anybody who wants to have any follow up.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Sean, did we cover the one section there about I guess the legislative initiatives or whatever?
So we were running late,
A
David,
little
and
late, so we didn't. Okay,
and
I just want to
so
make sure I didn't miss
I
that.
am going to share this with you, but I will go back and say that you're in North Carolina. That is not one of the states that is in a lot of scrutiny right now. Yeah,
Okay.
but we do have Georgia, Florida, Washington are really the three that are leading the edge, and that are people are feeling a lot of pain. Associations are feeling a lot of pain in those states, and we wanted to bring it to that. But generally, what we're seeing, and I attend a lot of the law seminar and collections events, and just the thing I'm hearing so consistently now is there's no more waiting, because if you wait, you're going to lose the money. You just have to be ready, and you have to have a plan, and to resolutely consider, like, to shift your mindset to, oh, I'm victimizing this one person who can't pay, to I'm actually helping the other 20 owners who are I'm protecting the other 20 owners, and I'm protecting the board. And I know that sounds awful, but it really is the reality of the collections environment that we're in. And that was really the whole thing. That was the whole piece there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate
Can I
you
ask
being
one
here.
question before? Can I ask one? So, Jessica and Sean, so do I have to contact my bank to stop making a payment, the monthly due for the next month? And then,
So I think that's something that the support team's going to have to help you with. You're talking about making your homeowner assessment payment.
right.
So, but I know that our support team, like, if you want to send them a message through the portal, or if you want to give them a call, they can help you to figure out. I think Jessica was answering on there. There must have been some change in the payment
Is this only
process,
for the?
but they
is this
can help
only-
you with that.
Is this only for the Shoals Point, association
It's not for the whole association. It's only for owners who were enrolled in property pay through First Citizens Bank. So I resent the guide for you on directions on how to re-enroll using Vantica Pay, because First Citizens Bank is now deactivated, so it will not pull for next month.
Yeah, we had some we had a handful of people who were going through an old payment service. we had some complaints that that payment service took too long for the payments to post to the owner account. It took 2 or 3 days for them to post. So we switched the service. So a few of our homeowners had to switch their payments as well. And now those will show up as soon as you make them. So
Is there any way to, the payment method wise, is there any?
So we're going to wrap up for tonight, and you guys, we will see you down the road. Thank you very much for being with us. And Chuck, I'm going to have Josue reach out to you tomorrow because I have a feeling there's some dots that aren't connected. We're going to get you what you need.
Thank you.
Got it. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.